Hey guys, tonight we ride with a horde thundering across the endless steppe, where the wind is dry, the sky stretches forever, and the horses never stop moving. You're not in a saddle, you're part of the saddle now. Your thighs ache, your eyes sting from the sun bouncing off the grasslands, and your ears ring with the hooves of 1,000 fellow warriors. You're a Mongol horseman. That means you eat, sleep, fight, and, yes, even relieve yourself without touching the ground for days. It's not glamorous. It's not even particularly sanitary. And you probably won't survive this lifestyle unless you figure out how to keep moving and stay fed. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, tell me where you're listening from and what time it is. I love knowing where you are when you drift off. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your stomach growls, but there's no campfire, no kitchen, no lunch break, just a horse beneath you and a bundle strapped tight to your saddle. You fumble through it without slowing your pace. The saddle shifts as your mount navigates a pothole-sized rodent hole. Somehow, you're still chewing on a piece of dried, tough-as-hide meat, the kind that's been warmed by your own body for hours. This is your first real meal since sunup, and it's less about taste than survival. You're learning quickly, Mongol horsemen don't stop to eat. The moment you dismount, you're vulnerable. The moment you sit, you're slower than the wind. So instead, you learn the art of eating in motion. The saddle itself? Think of it as a survival pod. There's a thick cloth under your thigh, and underneath that is a pouch, soft leather wrapped around raw mutton. It's been pressed against your warm, sweaty leg all morning. The movement of your horse mimics a primitive slow roast, the heat from your body turning raw into tenderish. Well, tender by nomadic standards. You unwrap it. A bit oily. A bit gamey. But edible. Mostly. It's not that Mongols couldn't cook. They had fires when they had time. But when your entire life is lived at a gallop, you learn to make do. The saddlebag becomes your oven. Your thigh? That's your stovetop. And your hands, calloused, smeared with dirt and goat hair, are your only utensils. You take another bite. It's better than nothing. There's an odd sweetness to it, possibly from the leather pouch or whatever herbs were tossed in weeks ago. Historians still argue whether the Mongols added spices to this meat, or if it was just fermented so long it started seasoning itself. You reach for your water skin, more on that fermented weirdness in the next leg of the ride, and rinse the chunk down. The taste lingers, but it grows on you. There's comfort in repetition, even if that repetition tastes like saddle-sweated mutton jerky. You glance sideways. Another warrior rides close, pulling a strip of dried meat from a cloth wrapped tightly around his waist. He nods without looking at you. His horse paces in rhythm with yours. No one talks much while eating. Too busy chewing. And watching. Always watching. You're surrounded by hundreds, possibly thousands, of riders. A mobile storm. And yet every one of them is silently nibbling, feeding, sipping, like ants in an army that never rests. The synchronization is eerie. Comforting, maybe. Or terrifying. Here's the thing most history books skip. This kind of life rewires your brain. You stop thinking in terms of meals. There's no breakfast. No lunch. Just constant little snacks crammed into the lulls between ambushes. You eat because your hands aren't swinging a saber right now. That window closes fast. A quick jolt from your horse nearly makes you drop the last bite. You curse under your breath and snatch it from the saddlecloth. 5-second rule? On the steppe, it's more like 5 hoofbeats. Dust and horsehair are part of the seasoning. Now comes the cleanup. Just kidding. There isn't one. You wipe your fingers on your horse's mane. He doesn't seem to mind. Mongols prize their horses like siblings, but nobody said they had to stay clean. As the sun begins to dip, the wind picks up and whistles past your ears. It's getting colder. You lean forward, resting a hand on the horse's neck. There's another meal under your saddle, a small pouch tucked between your knee and the girth strap. You'll save that for later, maybe. You adjust your seat, stretching a bit, and glance back at the horizon. The column behind you stretches long. Dust rises in great plumes. Somewhere in that chaos, someone else is learning what you're learning now. How to survive in the saddle, how to eat like a ghost on horseback. Quirky bit? Mongol children were said to master eating on horseback before they were fully weaned. Sippy cup in one hand, goat meat in the other. Toddlers you wouldn't want to meet in a dark alley. And just as your eyelids start to flutter from fatigue, a new smell hits your nose, a pungent sourness like week old vinegar mixed with sour cream. Someone just cracked open the fermented mare's milk. Lucky you. You're next in line for a swig. The sour sting hits your nostrils before the skin even reaches your lips. You brace yourself, because this isn't water, or even anything resembling water. It's arag, fermented mare's milk, and it comes with a sharp tang that makes your tongue recoil before you even sip. You squeeze the soft gallbladder flask gently, trying not to lose too much of the precious liquid. The pouch is greasy, well-worn, and it squeaks slightly in your hand. Warm from your fellow rider's saddle pack, the arag has been sloshing in a leather pouch for days, ripening. You tilt your head back and take a cautious gulp. It fizzes. Oh no! Yup, it's alive. Bubbly, biting, and slightly fizzy from wild fermentation, this cloudy drink is the Mongol version of a mid-ride energy shot. It's half yogurt, half vinegar, and somehow 100% horse. It slides down your throat like it has opinions. You shudder, then wipe your mouth with the back of your hand. The aftertaste? Imagine if cheese went hiking for 2 days without deodorant. The upside? It keeps you alert. No risk of drowsy digestion. This drink slaps your brain awake. The Mongols carried this stuff in bladders made from animal stomachs or hides, tied tight with sinew, then hung from their saddles or tucked into the folds of gear. The jostling from the horse's gait helped churn the milk into that special sour blend. It's a kind of steppe cocktail, made fresh with every gallop. And it's not just for hydration. Arag delivers fat, sugar, and a teeny bit of alcohol, all wrapped in a frothy, stomach-questioning package. Historians still argue whether Mongols drank it solely for sustenance or also for a mild buzz during long campaigns. Some records suggest it gave them a kind of spirited bravado in battle. Others think it just settled the nerves after chewing on thigh-warmed goat. You try not to gag as the second swallow goes down. It's not worse, technically. Your stomach makes a cautious noise, the kind that says, "We'll discuss this later." You pass the bladder back to the rider beside you, who takes a swig like it's fresh spring water. No flinch. No reaction. You try to match the stoic vibe, even though your mouth is doing acrobatics behind the scenes. He nods again. Respect, earned in curdled milk. You glance at the leather loop on your own saddle where your personal drink bladder is tied. It's still half full, stale, maybe, but better than nothing. You loosen it and check the contents. The skin creaks as you untie it, and a sour wave wafts up. You let it breathe like a bottle of fine wine. If fine wine were made from horses and fermented dreams. You think about how strange this would seem back home, if there were a home anymore. Out here, flavor is secondary to function. You hydrate to survive. You don't complain about the bouquet or mouthfeel when a dry mouth could get you killed. The practical upside? Arag has probiotics, yes, the same ones they advertise in those smiley yogurt commercials. Mongol guts were tough, but that daily slosh of fermented milk may have kept their digestion humming, even while their meals danced in their saddlebags. Quirky fact? Marco Polo once described Mongols drinking mare's milk as if it were honey, which either means his translator was messing with him, or Mongol taste buds just lived in a different universe. There's also speculation that some warriors trained their horses to recognize specific milk-producing mares during long marches, pulling them aside for a refill like a drive-through dairy bar. You try not to think too hard about that. A burst of wind cuts through the group, and you tighten your coat. The terrain dips slightly into a valley, and the air turns a degree cooler. Your horse snorts, flicking his ears back. He's tired too. You reach down, pat his neck, then fish out a small cloth pouch near the front of your saddle. Inside? A piece of dried curd, hard as a pebble, arrowel. It's the Mongol answer to hard candy, except it's made from sour milk, pressed into little bricks, and left to dry in the sun until it could survive a meteor strike. You pop one in your mouth. It clinks against your teeth like a pebble. You'll be sucking on this thing until your next birthday. It slowly softens, releasing a wave of tangy, cheesy grit. Not bad, actually. Paired with the sourness still clinging to your tongue from the arag, it somehow balances out. Like yogurt and chalk in a boxing match. Eating and drinking like this isn't just about keeping your energy up. It's about rhythm. Small bites, small sips, carefully timed. You feed yourself the same way you breathe or blink, automatically, often without thinking. Because when the call to draw your bow comes, your mouth better be empty and your hands free. The horse beneath you shifts, picking up the pace. Word spreads through the ranks, movement ahead. You tuck the pouch away and tighten your grip. The last sip of air still dances in your gut, fizzing with possibility. And with that slightly tipsy clarity comes a new challenge, eating while shooting. But that's for your next bite-sized lesson. Your fingers trace the edge of your quiver, brushing against the fletching of a fresh arrow. You've still got the gritty aftertaste of fermented mare's milk in your mouth, but there's no time to dwell. The front scout spotted movement, a dust plume just over the next rise. Could be deer, could be an enemy patrol. Either way, you're expected to ride, ready a bow, and maybe finish your lunch, all at the same time. You shift your weight slightly. Not enough to slow your horse, just enough to loosen your shoulders. Your right hand draws an arrow. Your left hand tugs the reins just enough to align with the pack's formation. And your mouth? Still gnawing gently on that arrow brick you started 20 minutes ago. Your jaw's been putting in work. Mongol multitasking is next level. Your bow is a reflex weapon, short, powerful, and curved to snap with deadly force. Perfect for firing a horseback. You slide the arrow onto the string, teeth still clamped around your curd. The trick is balance. Keep the reins steady with your knees, keep your target in sight, and don't choke on your snack. You fire. The arrow slices through the air with a satisfying whisper, and a moment later, the far-off bird it was aimed at tumbles from the sky. A good hit, breakfast and target practice in one go. You trot over, pluck the goose from the grass, and strap it to your saddle. Feathered and flapping no more, it'll become dinner after a few hours riding in the sun, possibly under your thigh again, depending on how you feel about feathery drumsticks. It's not uncommon for Mongols to snack while shooting. After all, battle doesn't pause for mealtime. And if you're lucky enough to have something in your hand when the arrows start flying, you don't drop it, you use it. Some warriors would even tug jerky from their belts between volleys, tearing it with their teeth like wild dogs mid-brawl. Historians still argue whether this kind of combat eating was common or more of a legendary embellishment. Did they really snack through ambushes? Or were those just moments in long, less glamorous marches where chewing felt more vital than charging? What's clear is this: the skill set was there. Hands were trained to do 10 things at once, and the mouth was never idle for long. Now you're moving again, picking up speed. A rhythm returns. Your hands alternate between gripping balanced snack, arrows, and reins. You reach into your coat and pull out a string of dried meat, borts, thinly sliced and wind-dried beef or goat. It looks like jerky but snaps like twigs. You suck on it a while before it's soft enough to chew. Your back teeth do the rest. There's a groove to this kind of eating. A tempo. Your mind sinks into it. You start to recognize what the others are chewing too. Bits of fat, hunks of sinew, those tiny pebble curds of hardened milk. One rider's even got what looks like a full sheep's ear. You decide not to ask. You think of home, what used to be home, anyway. Meals that were cooked, served in bowls, and maybe even warm. You picture spoons. Then you laugh to yourself. A spoon? Out here? You've got a knife strapped to your boot and teeth strong enough to open a tin can, if tin cans existed. One time, you saw a warrior use his bowstring to slice meat while riding. Not ideal, but it worked. Then he wiped it clean with his sleeve and fired a shot at a rabbit 10 seconds later. Precision doesn't stop for hygiene. Another rider once showed you how he tied strips of meat to the end of his reins, letting them dangle and dry in the wind, like horsepower dehydration racks. When hungry, he'd just suck one end into his mouth like a salty noodle. Efficient? Absolutely. Sanitary? Debatable. Genius? Definitely. There's a joke Mongol kids tell each other: if you stop riding, your dinner runs away. That's not far off. Speed means survival, and the ability to eat without slowing down is a kind of invisible armor. You're always ready. Always chewing. Always moving. You glance down. Your goose friend flaps slightly in the breeze. You could start the thigh warming process now, but it might be a little too fresh. Best give it another hour. In the meantime, you fish out another strip of borts, stuff it between your cheek and molars, and keep your eyes scanning the ridge ahead. The light is shifting, shadows longer now. The wind carries a new smell, burning dung. Someone up front is cheating. Maybe they're heating tea. You smirk. Even on horseback, there's always that one guy who needs a hot drink. Your mouth is tired, your hands sticky, and your stomach, miraculously, is full. Or full enough. As your horse settles into a smoother gait, your body relaxes, just slightly. You tuck the last bit of meat into your cheek and exhale slowly. The arrow you fired earlier? Still lodged in that bird, now bouncing gently with every step. And just like that, the horizon changes again. A storm's rolling in. Not lightning, just another target. More galloping. Maybe another snack between volleys. The Mongol way, bow in one hand, dried meat in the other, and a whole empire in your sights. Your hands are raw, your bowstrings left a permanent kiss across your palm, and the wind has begun to smell like wet horse and old cheese, which, on this steppe, probably means dinner time. You're not slowing down though. If anything, the pace has picked up, a long undulating gallop that turns the horizon into a blur and your legs into rubber. Your stomach growls again. Somehow, you thought you were full. But this lifestyle burns through fuel like a cart full of burning goat dung, and lunch was, what, 4 bites of wind-dried borts and a sip of fizzy horse milk? Yeah, you're due. Luckily, you've got an emergency stash. Not in your bag, not in a pocket, those are full of weapon oil, bone dice, and possibly lice. No, your snack is hanging from your saddle horn. Right there, just dangling in the breeze, is a half-cured hunk of goat meat, still wrapped in its own skin. It swings as you ride, collecting dust and admiration. You steer your horse with your knees, reach forward, and slice a strip free using the curved blade tied to your stirrup. Yes, stirrup. Because why not? You've already turned your thighs into crockpots. Turning your horse tack into cutlery is just the next logical step. This little blade, tucked neatly where boot meets saddle, is your go-to for slicing meat without ever reaching for your belt. The Mongol version of a Swiss Army knife, minus the wine opener. You take a moment to appreciate the ridiculousness. You, galloping across the wilderness, reins in your knees, chewing on sun-dried goat shoulder while cutting off the next piece with a blade that lives under your foot. It's multitasking on a level your high school guidance counselor could never have imagined. Historians still argue whether this stirrup cutting was a common practice or more of a battlefield convenience. But the surviving accounts are clear. Mongols didn't stop to butcher meat. They did it while riding, sometimes off a full carcass slung across a pack horse. One source even describes a soldier slicing meat off a live goat tied behind him. You're not sure if that's bravery or nutritional audacity. The slice you've cut now curls slightly in the wind. You flick it into your mouth. It's salty. Tough. A little earthy, probably from the layer of steppe dust that's basically unavoidable. You chew slowly. The rhythm of it matches the horse's gait, and for a moment, you feel like some sort of meat-chewing metronome. Another rider beside you mirrors your move. He's using a curved blade strapped to his forearm, slicing thin curls of something gray and stringy from a hunk of meat tied to the side of his quiver. You make brief eye contact, and there's a mutual nod. The nod of two warriors who've mastered the fine art of one-handed protein intake. Then there's the guy up ahead. Oh no! He's going full show off. Knife in his mouth, reins in his elbows, slicing a fish strapped to his knee. Where did he even get a fish out here? You look around. No rivers in sight. Just endless grass and sky and insanity. You look back down at your own meal. It's simpler. Salted meat. Maybe goat, maybe sheep. It's hard to tell after it's been cured under saddle leather for 2 days. But the point is, it works. Your body needs fat, protein, something solid to keep it from eating itself while you gallop into eternity. You wash the bite down with another gulp from your side flask. Not mare's milk this time. Something clearer. Water, blessedly clean, well, cleanish. Pulled from a stream this morning and filtered through your scarf. The taste of wool is now permanent. As you ride, the wind shifts again. You smell blood. Fresh. It's not alarming, yet. Could be from a recently butchered pack animal. But it reminds you of a less pleasant truth. Sometimes your food source is the same creature that was pulling your gear a few hours ago. When meat is scarce, a wounded horse or an aging goat becomes dinner. Fast. And you don't waste time with ceremony. Slice the good bits, sling them over the saddle, let friction and time do their thing. No fires. No smoke. No smell to alert enemies. Just quiet, a fish and hunger. You reach for another strip of meat and pause. There's a bit of hair on it. You pluck it off, shrug, and chew. If it's not crunchy or still moving, it's edible. That's your new motto. Quirky tip? Some warriors carried meat inside their saddles, not just under them. The padding would conceal a layer of thinly sliced meat, pressed flat and slow-cooked between leather and body heat. like a really gross panini. It's hard not to laugh thinking about it. Somewhere, a noble in a distant castle is nibbling roasted duck with a silver fork, and you're here, flossing goat sinew from your molars using your own hair. Still, there's pride in it. No one fed the Mongols. They fed themselves, with creativity, guts, and a distinct lack of concern for presentation. You glance at the now dwindling hunk of meat on your saddle horn and make a note to slice another chunk off before it turns green. Or greener. The next meal? Probably something fermented. Or congealed. Or both. But for now, you've mastered the art of slicing meat with a stirrup knife while moving at full gallop. And weirdly, you're kind of into it. The meat settles in your stomach with a lumpy thud, like a slightly damp sock stuffed with protein. It's doing the job, though. Energy seeps back into your limbs, and your hands stop shaking just enough to make the reins feel like extensions of your fingers again. The horizon still stretches out like a never-ending scroll, but you ride on, fed, focused, and a little bit funky smelling. Now comes dessert. Not that soft, sweet, chocolatey kind. No. This is the fermented kind. The kind your ancestors probably warned you about. You reach into a pouch tucked tight against your left thigh, yes, again with the thigh heat, and pull out something wrapped in an oiled cloth. It squishes a little. That's either promising or terrifying. You unwrap it slowly, taking care not to let it breathe too much. Inside is a lump of curd, a kind of clotted cream that's been aged until it no longer resembles cream in any recognizable dairy universe. It's somewhere between cheese and soap, with a smell that says, "I fought a yak for this." You nibble. It crumbles, yet somehow sticks to the roof of your mouth like regret. Still, the fat content is high, and your body knows what to do with that. Mongols practically ran on fat, goat fat, sheep fat, horse fat. It was like battery acid for nomadic metabolism. And just when you think the flavor's gone, a new wave hits, sour, then bitter, then something strangely sweet. Historians still argue whether curd was intentionally aged or if it was just accidentally forgotten until someone dared to try it. The modern consensus? A bit of both. Beside you, another rider breaks off a chunk of something even more dubious. You catch a whiff. Boiled horse blood. Jellied and rolled into a tight lump, it's the closest thing to a blood bar you've ever seen. He pops it into his mouth like it's a figure. You consider asking for a bite, then remember how bad the last one tasted and decide against it. Mongol cuisine, if you can even call it that on the road, thrives on fermentation. Not just because it tastes funky and keeps you regular, though both are true, but because it lasts. Weeks. Sometimes months. Long after fruit has rotted and bread's gone moldy, that glob of yogurt skin or that rock-hard cheese is still there, waiting for your teeth to give it a shot. Fire, after all, is a luxury. It takes time, fuel, and stillness, all of which you rarely have. So the Mongol answer? Eat things that age without fire. The sun, the wind, and your own bodily warmth do all the cooking necessary. You glance down at your saddle setup, a true culinary miracle of leather and sweat. Underneath, there's a second pouch, lined with hide, that holds small blocks of urum. That's sun-thickened yogurt, cut into chunks and dried until they're practically chalk. You take one, rub off the dust, probably, and pop it into your cheek. It sticks there, melting slowly. Quirky detail? The Mongols sometimes traded this stuff to Chinese merchants in exchange for silk and salt. Apparently, people who didn't live in the saddle also found it edible. Or at least interesting. As the sun moves higher, you feel the heat build. The fermented bits in your stomach begin to gurgle. Nothing dramatic, yet. But it's a reminder that your digestive system is on call, 24/7, trying to make sense of what you're feeding it. Yogurt pebbles. Blood jelly. Crumbly goat cream. It's a party down there, and everyone brought something weird. The air is thick with the scent of livestock. You're riding past a small herd of sheep being managed by fellow riders. One of them casually wrings out a cloth full of curdled milk, letting the whey dribble onto the ground. You nod at him, and he grins, popping a curd the size of a coin into his mouth. You wonder how often these guys actually enjoy what they eat. Then you realize enjoyment isn't the point. Efficiency is. Nutrition, shelf life, portability. Your food doesn't need a kitchen. It needs legs and body heat, preferably both. You unwrap the last bit of curd, hesitating. It's grown warmer, wetter. It squelches in a way that makes your throat tighten. Still, waste not. You close your eyes and take the final bite. It slides down slowly, leaving a trail of dairy vengeance in its wake. Your horse snorts beneath you, probably smelling the same thing. You pat his neck as if to say, "Yeah, me too, buddy." But he doesn't seem to mind. After all, he's been part of the kitchen all day. This diet? It changes you. Not just your palate, though that's a lost cause at this point, but your pace, your expectations. You stop hoping for variety. You start craving density. Anything packed with energy, anything that can survive a thunderstorm and still be edible is golden. No fires. No sauces. Just fermentation, air, and body heat. The sun begins its downward arc, and you notice the shadows growing long again. A good time to give your stomach a break. You wipe your mouth, take a slow drink from your pouch, and glance ahead. There's no fire waiting for you. No tent. No table. But there's a piece of goat thigh under your saddle, another cheese brick near your calf, and a little bag of mystery jelly tied to your scabbard. You're good. Your horse stumbles slightly, just a hitch in the rhythm, but it jolts you enough to remember, you haven't had anything truly hot in days. No tea. No stew. Not even lukewarm water that's been left in the sun too long. And while your stomach's lined with enough cheese grit and semi-liquid blood putting to power an entire cavalry unit, there's still that old craving for something cooked. Too bad. Because out here, fireless cuisine reigns supreme. You look around. The others are snacking like it's a casual picnic from hell. One rider peels a strip of dried intestine from a belt loop, like a grotesque fruit roll-up. Another has pulled out a hard puck of something brown and is gnawing on it like a goat working on a fence post. You don't ask what it is. The fewer answers you get, the easier it is to eat. Mongol warriors knew how to eat raw, dry, and fermented. But cooked? Cooked was for when you had time. Time to stop. Time to gather fuel. Time to build a fire without alerting half the continent to your presence. And those times were rare. So instead, you master a cuisine that doesn't need flame. Think of it as the original no-cook meal prep. Every bite has to be portable, long-lasting, and, most importantly, safe to eat after spending a week next to your armpit. You slide your hand down to a cloth-wrapped bundle under your saddle. It's still warm, naturally, because your leg has been slow roasting it for hours. Inside? Goat tripe, stuffed with crushed arrowroot, a bit of dried mutton, and what might be onions. Or grass. Hard to tell after 4 days in a sweaty pouch. You peel back the cloth and take a cautious sniff. Savory. Tangy. A little sour. Your nose doesn't recoil, always a good sign. You tear off a bite with your teeth. It resists, just for a second, then yields into a surprisingly complex texture, chewy outer skin, crumbly fat inside, and the unmistakable crunch of, wait, are those pine nuts? Mongols did forage, after all. Historians still argue whether the no-fire method was a deliberate cultural choice or simply a battlefield necessity. There are tales of warriors sitting on cuts of meat to tenderize them, or strapping them to their horses so the balance of the ride did all the cooking. Others insist it was just convenience, not strategy. A cook as you ride ethos born from sheer speed. You like the poetry of it. You're a human oven now. Your horse is your sous chef. One curious tidbit? Some Mongols stored dough between the folds of their clothing to ferment it on the go. It didn't rise in the traditional sense, but it soured nicely. Add a bit of curd, some melted fat, maybe wrap it in a thin strip of hide, and boom. Steppe sandwich. You spot one rider biting into such a creation now. He's got that distant look in his eye like he's either reminiscing about childhood or just deeply regretting his life choices. You understand both. No flames means fewer smells, which means fewer ambushes. The great secret to the Mongol diet wasn't just portability, it was stealth. Cooking smoke is a signal. Cold food is silence. You take another bite of your tripe wrap. It's actually getting better as it cools slightly. Or maybe your taste buds have given up protesting. Either way, the fatty goodness coats your teeth and numbs your brain just enough to keep the hunger at bay. As you ride, you feel the heat building again under your thigh. That's your next course, another slab of meat pressed between your saddle and leg. The trick is rotating the pouch occasionally, so one side doesn't crisp while the other still oozes raw regret. Some veterans say you can tell how good the meal will be by the squish. Too hard? It's overcured. Too soft? Still bleeding. But just the right amount of springback? Dinner. You reach behind and check the backup ration tied under your saddle flap, a block of congealed fat mixed with bits of dried milk and crumbled organ meat. dense, calorie-rich, the kind of thing you could throw at someone and cause actual injury. It's technically food, though your jaw may disagree. You break off a piece and pop it into your mouth. The fat melts slowly, warming on your tongue. The milk curd gives it texture, chalky, but satisfying in a it's this or starvation sort of way. And just as you finish swallowing, your horse jolts again, this time sidestepping a tuft of scrubgrass that apparently offended it. You lurch slightly but recover. Your saddle squeaks, your belly groans, and the squish under your thigh confirms your next meal is ready. No fire, no spices, just motion, heat, and the constant pressure of existence. Mongol cuisine may never get a Netflix cooking show, but it has something else, raw, unfiltered endurance. You shift in your saddle to redistribute the cooking zones, already planning the next round. Maybe the duck breast you acquired during that morning skirmish. Maybe the liver from yesterday's unlucky goat. Or maybe, if you're feeling indulgent, you'll just suck on some milkstones and hope your stomach forgets it's supposed to care. For now, you let the taste of warm tripe linger. It's oddly comforting. Like a hug from a very sweaty, slightly fermented ghost. You adjust your weight in the saddle again, feeling the subtle squelch of something cooking beneath your thigh. You started thinking of your body heat in culinary terms now, rare on the left side, medium warm on the right. The moment you dismount, all this edible engineering evaporates. That's why you don't. Welcome to fireless cuisine, version steppe. You glance at the horizon, flat, dry, endless. Not a tree in sight. Maybe a few scraggly bushes barely tall enough to shade a turtle. Firewood? Forget it. The only fuel available is dried dung. Your horses, the goats, yours, doesn't really matter. When you do stop long enough to light a fire, it's small, smoky, and sacred. But most days, you skip the whole production. Why bother with flame when your saddle, your body, and a bit of sweat can get the job done? The Mongols were masters of heatless preparation, turning biology into a kitchen and motion into a recipe. You reach into your coat and pull out a flat disc of borts, paper-thin meat that's been sliced raw and dried stiff in the sun. It's brittle. A flick of your finger could snap it. But a little time in your mouth, along with some careful saliva maneuvering, and it starts to soften. You crack a piece off and chew slowly. It tastes like the last 2 weeks of your life, salty, dry, and weirdly comforting. This stuff was usually beef or goat, cut into long thin strips, then hung on lines to air dry until it had the consistency of leather armor. There's no risk of rot. No flies. Just you, your teeth, and eternity. Quirky detail? Bortz was so portable, Mongol envoys carried it across entire continents. When they arrived at distant courts in Persia or China, they'd pull out a strip, grind it down, mix it with water, and call it soup. Instant noodles, 13th century edition. Just add spit. And right now, you're doing just that. The texture transitions from crunchy to chewy to stringy, until it's more a paste than a food. It sticks to your molars like a protein glue. But you feel stronger already. No cooking required. No dishes. No cleanup. Just nourishment, minus the glamour. Historians still argue whether Mongols considered this a preference or a necessity. Was it strategy? Or just adaptation? Some argue they chose to avoid fire because it made them less visible to enemies. Others think they were simply too busy conquering the world to mess with boiling pots. Either way, they made it work. You shift your position, peeling up your saddle flap to check on another pouch. A sticky pouch. One that contains a peculiar favorite, fermented millet mash. It smells ambitious. Like someone left porridge in a sweaty boot. You take a small fingerful, roll it into a ball, and pop it into your mouth. It's sour. It bubbles faintly. It has the texture of gritty pancake batter. But it's food, and your stomach welcomes it with an enthusiastic gurgle. The beauty of fireless cuisine is its permanence. You don't worry about spoilage. You don't wait for heat. You don't pause. Your life is motion, and your diet mirrors it, pickable, chewable, dissolvable. Even water gets treated like a meal. When it's cold enough, Mongols sometimes carried snow in cloth bundles to suck as they rode. In warmer weather, they relied on shallow streams, no time to boil, just strain it through a sleeve or a chunk of scarf and hope for the best. You think of tea. Real tea. That would need fire. That would need stopping. That would need someone to volunteer to gather dung, spark flint, boil water, and then hold the cup while riding. You shake your head. Too complicated. Instead, you pull out a second helping of that fermented yogurt brick. Arul, again. Hard as bone, but good for nibbling. And it'll last for weeks. You suck on the corner, letting it soften against your tongue. It gives nothing at first, then slowly melts into that familiar sour chalkiness. You glance around. Others are doing the same. One rider has wedged a bit of dried cheese between his cheek and molars like a steppe-style chewing tobacco. Another has mashed some dried blood sausage with a rock and is licking the powder from his palm. Mongol fine dining. There's camaraderie in this fireless feast. No one's cooking for anyone else. No one's plating or portioning. You eat what you have. You share if there's time. You always keep something fermenting in your pack, just in case. It's said that Genghis Khan himself ate this way, moving with his army, never pausing for banquets unless a city had just fallen. He preferred speed to ceremony. Momentum over mealtime. And you, now, are part of that legacy. Your teeth ache. Your jaw is tired. Your lips are cracked. But you are fed. Efficiently. Invisibly. A gust of wind lifts your scarf. You catch a whiff of your own personal kitchen, cheese, sweat, and aged goat. It's not pleasant, but it's familiar. You rub your belly, feeling the low hum of digestion. No smoke. No mess. Just you and your horse, thundering toward your next meal already warming beneath your seat. You shift in the saddle, feeling the familiar warmth beneath your thigh, the natural oven that's slowly cooking the meat you tucked in hours ago. It's a strange sensation, knowing that your own body heat is responsible for turning raw meat into a meal. The subtle bounce of the horse adds to the slow roasting effect, like a primitive slow cooker, except a lot less sanitary. Your legs grip the horse firmly, not just to stay mounted, but to maintain pressure on that pouch of goat or lamb, tucked snugly against the saddle leather. The heat from your thigh and the movement of the horse combine to gently break down the fibers of the meat, tenderizing it in a way no open flame ever could. You can almost feel the transformation happening with every stride. Cooking with your body is a necessity born from the harsh realities of the steppe. There's no time to build fires when you're fleeing enemies or racing toward new conquests. You don't stop to roast or stew. Instead, you carry your kitchen with you. The line between rider and cook blurs until they are one and the same. Historians still debate exactly how widespread this practice was. Some accounts suggest it was common among ordinary warriors, while others believe only the elite or those on the longest campaigns relied heavily on body heat cooking. Either way, it's undeniable that the Mongols mastered the art of turning their own mounts into portable kitchens. You reach down and gingerly feel the pouch. It's warm, supple, and yes, slightly greasy from the mingling of sweat and fat. You can almost taste the promise of tender meat inside. A quick slice with your stirrup knife frees a thin strip that you pop into your mouth. The texture surprises you. It's chewy but yielding, a bit smoky from the leather wrapping, and with a faint tang from slow fermentation. Not exactly a Michelin star, but it's enough to keep the hunger pangs at bay. Your horse snorts, apparently as tired as you are. You pat his neck, feeling the heat radiating through his muscles. He's more than a companion. He's your provider in your mobile kitchen. Without him, you'd be nothing but a hungry man on an empty plain. You catch a glimpse of other riders doing the same, thigh-warming their meals, slicing strips of meat with small knives attached to their boots, chewing without ever stopping. It's a strange but effective symbiosis. One quirky tidbit: some Mongols believed the quality of the cooked meat was better if the pouch was placed near the horse's flank rather than under the thigh, using the horse's own body temperature variations to their advantage. It's a theory that makes you smile. Talk about cooking with horsepower. Your jaw works overtime, the muscles sore but grateful for the nourishment. The blend of heat, movement, and fermentation has turned something once raw and tough into a modest feast. And just as you swallow, you feel the thrill of movement pulse through your body again. No rest for the weary. No pause for the hungry. You tuck the last bit of meat back into the pouch and adjust your grip on the reins. Because on the Mongol steppe, the kitchen is always open, just don't ask for a chair. You reach back to check your saddlebag's pantry, a treasure trove of oddities and necessities balanced carefully to keep you alive on this endless ride. Inside, you find your staples: liver, suet, dried milk curds, and if you're lucky, a crust of black bread from a rare trade or raid. It's the kind of pantry that defies modern sensibilities but works perfectly for a life spent mostly on horseback. Your fingers brush over a small wrapped bundle. Liver, packed tight and preserved with salt and whatever herbs you could scavenge. It smells rich and a little metallic, stronger than anything you'd get at a market stall back home. That iron tang reminds you it's a power food, packed with nutrients to keep you sharp. You unwrap a piece and toss it into your mouth. It's dense, almost creamy, with a flavor that's bold and unforgiving. You chew slowly, savoring the energy it delivers. Liver wasn't just sustenance, it was survival fuel. Beside the liver lies a chunk of suet, the hard fat trimmed from sheep or cattle. It's dense and waxy, more texture than flavor, but vital when your body is burning calories by the hour. You break off a small piece and let it melt slowly on your tongue. It's like nature's energy bar, minus the packaging and gluten. Dried milk curds are another staple. You pop a few into your mouth, letting them dissolve into a chalky, sour slurry. It's not comfort food, but it lasts for months without refrigeration and gives your gut something to do besides grumble. If you're lucky, you might find a crust of black bread tucked somewhere in your pack. Dense and heavy, it's more like a brick than bread, but it offers the kind of carbs that won't spoil on the journey. When you get it, you guard it like gold. Quirky historical detail, some Mongol warriors reportedly used dried liver as an improvised weapon, tossing hardened slabs at enemies when out of arrows. Whether that's true or just battlefield folklore, it's a story you can appreciate when your fingers are sticky and your throat dry. Historians still debate the exact composition of these travel staples, what herbs were used, how they cured and stored these foods, and how recipes varied across the vast Mongol Empire. The variety is surprising given the nomadic constraints, but innovation was a survival skill. You glance at your horse, who snorts softly, nostrils flaring at the scent of your impromptu meal. You feed him a handful of millet, an energy boost for your four-legged partner. His strength keeps you moving, and you know that taking care of him means taking care of yourself. Eating while riding isn't glamorous, but it's a ritual of resilience. You savor each bite, knowing that every mouthful is another mile conquered, another moment closer to victory, or survival. You tuck the last morsel away and tighten your saddle straps. Ahead lies the endless steppe, the dust rising like a curtain, and the promise of many more meals cooked by your own body, in motion. No kitchens. No pause. Just the relentless rhythm of horse hooves and hunger. Your horse's gallop kicks up dust that coats your lips and sticks to the bits of dried meat you're trying to chew, but there's no time to slow down. A raid is underway, a whirlwind of shouting, arrows, and swirling cloaks, and you need to keep your wits about you. Yet, somehow, between sword swings and dodging arrows, you manage to keep something in your mouth, steady and ready. Eating while raiding is an art form. You don't pause. You don't dismount. Your food becomes part of the battlefield rhythm, a silent fuel amid the chaos. You tear off strips of dried meat with your teeth and chew as you duck behind a tree, your other hand gripping your saber. The taste is dusty, chewy, and strangely satisfying amid the adrenaline. Historians still argue whether Mongols really managed to eat during the heat of battle or if those stories were embellishments designed to showcase their toughness. Regardless, the idea captures the spirit of the nomads, unstoppable, unyielding, always on the move. You remember a tale from an old comrade about a rider who bit into a piece of dried liver mid-sword fight, not missing a single stroke. The liver gave him the energy to push through exhaustion, and that day, he lived to tell the tale. Maybe it's true. Maybe it's a myth. Either way, the story lives on. Your mouth waters at the memory of the tender jerky hanging off your saddle, but you can't reach it yet. You're locked in a deadly dance with an enemy soldier, your eyes sharp, your movements precise. Your horse twists and turns beneath you, every muscle coiled for action. Between exchanges, you seize a moment. Your fingers fumble for the pouch hanging from your belt, pulling out a small piece of dried cheese. It's hard and salty, practically a rock, but it fuels your resolve. You nibble as you circle around, eyes scanning for the next move. The dust settles slightly, but the fighting isn't over. Your horse snorts nervously. You reach down and toss a handful of millet into his mouth. His strength is your lifeline. Feeding him is feeding yourself. Mongol raids weren't just battles, they were mobile kitchens, training grounds, and survival schools all at once. You eat while fighting, drink while charging, and never lose momentum. As the skirmish draws to a close, you wipe dust and sweat from your brow, your stomach oddly steady despite the frenzy. Your body is a machine now, fueled by dried meats, fermented milk, and relentless motion. You glance at the horizon, more dust plumes rising in the distance. More meals, more battles, more endless riding. And somehow, somewhere in this chaos, You find a strange comfort in the rhythm of eating on the move. It's not elegant. It's not clean. But it's survival. You pop the last bite of dried cheese into your mouth and hold your bow steady. The ride continues. Your horse's breath puffs in soft clouds as you slow for a brief moment, enough to scoop up a handful of millet from a leather pouch dangling near your saddle. You toss the tiny grains toward your horse's eager mouth, watching them scatter between his teeth. His strength keeps you alive. Without his endurance, you'd be food for wolves or worse. Feeding him is as essential as feeding yourself. Horses are not just transportation, they're partners, co-cooks, and lifelines. The Mongols knew this well, nurturing their steeds with care even amid endless travel. Millet was a key part of their equine diet, providing energy and nutrients that let the horses carry their riders farther and faster. You pat your horse's neck, feeling the warmth and muscle beneath your palm. His glossy coat is dusted with sweat, his legs moving with steady power. Feeding him feels like an act of gratitude, a silent pact between rider and mount. Historians still debate exactly how much millet factored into a Mongol horse's diet versus wild forage, but it's clear that a well-fed horse meant a well-fed warrior. Without the horse's strength, your world shrinks to the size of your own 2 feet, a very small, very vulnerable world. As you toss another handful of millet, your fingers brush a leather bag filled with fermented mare's milk for the horse. It's a drink as vital to your companion as it is to you. Fermented milk is easier to digest and packed with calories, perfect for fueling a beast built for endless gallops. Your horse's ears twitch, alert to the sounds of the steppe. You glance up, noting the shift in wind, the subtle change in the dust cloud ahead. The march must continue, but for this brief moment, you and your horse share a silent meal, a bond forged in the grind of survival. You chew on a hardened milk curd, your own emergency snack, and watch the plains stretch ahead, an endless ribbon of dust, grass, and sky. Feeding your horse feeds you. You are a team, moving as one. The rhythm of riding and eating, of feeding and fighting, settles into your bones. It's the pulse of nomadic life, a dance of endurance and efficiency. Your horse eats, you eat, and the world keeps turning beneath hooves and hunger. As you tighten your grip on the reins, you feel a renewed sense of purpose. The road is long, the meal's strange, but the ride never ends. And with every bite shared, human or horse, you are part of something larger than yourself. The steppe whispers around you, and you move forward, nourished and relentless. You settle into the rhythm of the herd, reins loose in your grip, eyes scanning the horizon but your mind drifting to the small pouch being passed silently from one rider to the next. No one dismounts, no one breaks formation. The passing pouch is your communal meal, a greasy, crumbly mass of meat and fat, shared with trust and necessity. Everyone dips a finger or a piece of dried bread into it, grabbing just enough to sustain but not slow the column. It's not about etiquette, it's about survival, and the unspoken understanding that wasting food here can be deadly. You pass the pouch to the rider behind you, feeling the rough leather scrape against your palm. The smell is intense, rich with cured meat, horse sweat, and a hint of sour dairy. Your fingers come away slick, and you wipe them on your horse's mane. Again, he seems unfazed. He's used to the scent of survival. Historians still debate how often these communal meals occurred on the move. Some sources suggest they were a regular part of Mongol life, reinforcing bonds and boosting morale. Others argue that the pace of travel left little time for anything but the barest nourishment, eaten in fleeting moments between orders and skirmishes. You take a moment to savor the rich morsel tucked into your cheek. The texture is dense and oily, the flavor sharp and salty. It clings stubbornly to your teeth but dissolves slowly into the fuel your body needs. Sharing food without stopping is a skill learned young. It requires trust. You must rely on your fellow riders not to slow down or hog the pouch. It's a dance of give and take, performed at full gallop. As you chew, your thoughts flicker to the next stop, whenever and wherever that might be. Will there be fire? Will you finally sit? Or will the meals continue to be pouches passed hand to hand, bites stolen mid-ride? You pass the pouch on, feeling the weight of your role in this unbroken chain. Eating like this, without pause or privacy, is a reminder. The Mongols lived as a collective, their fates tied by blood, sweat, and shared hunger. You glance around. The faces beside you are grim but focused, mouths busy, eyes alert. The meal continues, moving forward with the herd. Your horse snorts, shifting beneath you. You pat his flank and prepare for the next stretch, knowing the road, and the food will not wait. You pull a small, mysterious pouch from your saddlebag, the texture sticky and oddly soft against your fingers. Inside lies blood sausage, a sticky, spongy bundle made from congealed horse blood mixed with fat, herbs, and a secret blend of spices passed down through generations. It's a prized delicacy, and you know better than to drop it. You peel back a bit of casing and take a cautious bite. The taste is rich and iron-heavy, a dense explosion of savory flavors. It sticks to your teeth and gums, a challenge to chew but worth it. This is the kind of food that fuels legends. Blood sausage's exact recipe remains one of the Mongols' most guarded secrets, and historians still debate the details. Was it made primarily from horse blood? Or did recipes vary regionally, incorporating other livestock? Some argue that the spice blend was so potent it could double as medicine, while others think it was just a way to use every bit of the animal. Preparing blood sausage on the move was no small feat. The casing had to be sturdy enough to hold the liquid blood, and the sausage needed to be cooked or cured just right to last on long campaigns. Mongol riders perfected this art, balancing practicality with taste, a necessity in a world without refrigerators. As you chew, your horse nuzzles your side, perhaps curious about the new scent. You offer him a small piece of dried millet, a simple exchange of favors between rider and steed. The blood sausage's texture is unfamiliar, sticky, chewy, and dense, but it fills you with a warmth beyond mere calories. It feels like tradition, history, and survival all wrapped in one. Quirky note: some Mongol tales claim that blood sausage was considered a warrior's food, eaten before battle to strengthen courage and stamina. Whether superstition or fact, it remains a powerful symbol of the nomadic warrior spirit. You carefully wrap the remaining sausage and tuck it away, knowing this treasure won't last forever but will carry you through the next few days. It's comfort food for a harsh world. The wind picks up again, and you glance ahead at the endless steppe. Time to move on. There's no stopping in this life. No slowing for dinner parties or leisurely meals. Your hands find the reins, and you feel the familiar pulse of the horse beneath you. With blood sausage fueling your strength, you're ready for whatever comes next. You pop a hard, chalky piece of arrowroot into your mouth, the legendary dry cheese that could double as a rock in a pinch. It's basically Mongol candy, if candy were made by leaving sour milk out in the sun until it's the size of a brick and as hard as your boot sole. You start sucking it, letting it soften slowly because biting right away would definitely chip a tooth. It tastes like a cross between tangy chalk and old yogurt, but there's comfort in the familiarity. The longer you suck, the more it mellows, releasing little bursts of salty, milky flavor. Perfect snack for riding long distances when you don't want to risk choking or slowing down. The Mongols prized arrowroot for its longevity. It could last for months, even years, without refrigeration. Some accounts suggest that warriors carried huge slabs with them, breaking off pieces as needed. You wonder if some of them used the chunks as impromptu weapons when ammunition ran low. Historians still argue how arrowroot was originally made. Was it simply dried yogurt curds, or did they add other ingredients to improve flavor and shelf life? Some scholars believe the drying process might have involved storing the curds in animal skins or exposing them to smoke. The variations across regions are a testament to the Mongols' adaptability. Chewing arrowroot takes patience and perseverance, qualities you're quickly learning are vital on the steppe. It's not the most enjoyable snack by modern standards, but it's reliable, calorie-dense, and requires no prep. You glance at your fellow riders, many of whom are working on their own chunks, eyes half closed from fatigue but jaws busy. One rider laughs quietly, joking about how this stuff could be used as armor if you had enough of it. You chuckle, because only on the steppe would cheese double as a survival tool and a weapon. You swallow the softened bit and reach for another chunk, already calculating how long this stash will last. It might get you through the next few days of constant riding and skirmishes, which means it's more valuable than gold right now. Your horse shifts beneath you, seeming to sense the weariness in your legs. You give him a quick pat, offering a handful of dried millet. He accepts without hesitation. The relationship between rider and horse is symbiotic. Your stamina depends on his, and vice versa. You tuck the last piece of arrowroot back into its pouch and adjust your saddle, bracing yourself for more miles and more meals made on the move. You might not have silver spoons or fire, but you've got hard cheese and grit. That's the Mongol way. Your fingers grip a dense, brick-like chunk of tallow and salt curd, a kind of steppe energy bar that's more fat than food but gets the job done when you're miles from a kitchen. You break off a small piece and toss it into your mouth, where it slowly melts into a rich, greasy fuel. It's not gourmet, but then again, neither is survival. The salt cuts through the fat, keeping you hydrated and energized in the harsh steppe sun. It's like chewing on a little block of preserved energy, a snack designed to keep your muscles from cramping and your mind sharp. This was the nomad's equivalent of a protein bar, only heavier and less sweet. Historians still debate whether these tallow bars were a common ration or reserved for moments of extreme need. Some suggest that warriors gnawed on them throughout the day, while others think they were emergency reserves, pulled out when food was scarce. You crunch slowly, mindful of your teeth. Too much salt can be dangerous, but without it, your body would fail in the endless gallops. The Mongols mastered this delicate balance: high energy, high salt, high survival. A quirky fact? Some Mongol warriors were known to carry slabs of fat mixed with dried herbs and animal blood, compressed and shaped into bars that could be thrown at enemies in desperation. A weapon and a meal in one. You chew steadily, feeling the grease coat your tongue and lubricate your throat. It's messy, sticky, and utterly necessary. Your horse shifts beneath you, sniffing the salty air. You reach down and grab a handful of millet, offering it as a treat. He nuzzles your hand gratefully, his warm breath fogging the morning air. You glance ahead to the endless horizon, where dust clouds rise like specters on the wind. There's no pause in the journey, no moment to rest, no chance to roast or stew. Just you, your horse, and your tallow bricks. The rhythm is relentless, the pace unforgiving. But your body, fueled by this greasy energy bar, keeps moving. And so do you. You slow your horse slightly as you catch the faint scent of something sweet and tart on the breeze. It's the surprise garnish of the steppe diet: wild chokeberries, their dark purple clusters gleaming against dusty green leaves. You lean down, plucking a few and popping them into your mouth. The flavor is sharp and a little bitter, like nature's own candy with a punch. These berries, along with other wild greens and herbs, were the nomad's secret source of vitamins and variety. Foraged during brief pauses or along the trail, they added a burst of flavor and a touch of freshness to an otherwise relentless diet of dried meats and fermented dairy. Historians still debate how frequently Mongols supplemented their meals with foraged plants. Some believe it was a seasonal luxury, while others argue it was a crucial component of their nutrition year-round. The truth probably lies somewhere in between. You bite into a wild leaf, unsure whether it's edible but willing to take the risk. It tastes grassy, a little peppery, and oddly refreshing. Your mouth feels alive in a way that dried meat and fermented milk never quite achieve. Your horse snorts, nibbling at a patch of grass nearby. You toss him a handful of millet and thanks. The partnership between rider and horse isn't just about transportation, it's a shared survival story, woven through every bite and every step. There's a rhythm to this eating, bits of berries stolen between bites of meat, wild greens crushed into the back of the mouth, flavors clashing and blending as you ride. You're not just fueling your body, you're keeping your senses sharp and your spirit engaged. Quirky tidbit: Mongol warriors were known to carry small pouches of dried wild herbs, not just for flavor but for medicinal purposes. Some herbs were used to soothe stomach aches, others to boost energy or even act as rudimentary antiseptics. As the wind carries more scents across the plains, you tuck the last of the berries away and tighten your saddle. Ahead lies more riding, more snacking, and the unending dance of survival on the move. You chew thoughtfully on a bitter leaf, savoring this rare touch of green. Because on the steppe, every bite counts. The steppe stretches endlessly, but within it hides one of the Mongols' most ingenious culinary tricks: the stomach as pressure cooker. You've heard the stories, how warriors would hollow out the stomach of a freshly slaughtered animal, stuff it with meat and herbs, seal it tight, and let the slow heat of the journey do the rest. It's a method that defies logic yet works because time and motion become the cooks. You examine your own pack, imagining how a similar bundle might have been fashioned on a long march. Inside, a small pouch filled with goat's stomach, already faintly tenderized by heat and sweat. The idea of cooking meat inside a stomach might sound unappetizing, but it's survival with a capital S. Historians still debate the prevalence of this technique. Some argue it was a rare, elite practice reserved for commanders on long campaigns, while others believe it was a widespread method born of necessity and perfected by trial and error. Either way, it speaks to the Mongols' adaptability. The science makes sense. The sealed stomach acts like a natural pressure cooker, trapping steam and juices, breaking down tough fibers without a flame. Combined with the constant motion of riding, it's a slow, gentle process, a mobile stew that needs no fire, no pot, just patience. You take a small bite of your own stomach stew pouch. The texture is tender, the flavor earthy and slightly gamey, with a faint tang of fermented herbs. It's unlike anything you've tasted before, but it fills a hunger deeper than the surface. Quirky fact, some warriors swore by this method, claiming it imparted a mystical energy, a taste of the beast's spirit itself. Others joked it was just a way to hide smelling meat from nosy comrades. Either way, the pouches smelled awful. You glance over at your horse, who's grazing quietly despite the constant motion. Feeding your mount and feeding yourself are two sides of the same coin, both essential for the endless ride. The pouch goes back into your saddle, nestled close to your body heat to continue cooking. No stove needed. No smoke. No fire. Just a rolling kitchen, where stomachs and sweat do the work. You settle deeper into your saddle, feeling the slow simmer of survival beneath you. The dust swirls heavier now, swirling in the fading light as you push through the long, grueling forced march known as the death ride. You're bone-tired, your muscles screaming, and your stomach feels like a bottomless pit, but even now, you don't stop. There's no luxury of rest, no campfire, no warm meal. Just the harsh reality of riding until your body breaks. Your food is sweat-warmed, wrapped tightly against your body, and barely enough to keep the edges of starvation at bay. You nibble on a strip of dried meat that's been tucked under your saddle flap for days, tough, bitter, and coated in dust. It's survival food, not comfort. Historians still argue how the Mongols managed their rations during these brutal marches. Some suggest they rationed carefully, stretching every bite. Others say they ate what they could, whenever they could, trusting their bodies to endure the scarcity. You feel the weight of the ride pressing down, not just on your body but on your mind. Every swallow is a small victory, every bite a testament to your grit. The taste is harsh, but the energy is undeniable. Your horse moves steadily, muscles taut but determined. You offer him a handful of millet, watching him eat with slow, methodical bites. The bond between rider and horse is unspoken but essential. Without his strength, you'd be nothing. You glance around. Fellow riders are equally worn, faces drawn but eyes sharp. They chew silently, conserving energy and focusing on the endless road ahead. There's a grim camaraderie here, a shared understanding that this suffering is temporary but necessary. The food, though meager and rough, is a thread connecting you to the hope of survival and victory. You swallow the last of your meat and reach for your water pouch. The fermented mare's milk inside is sharper than ever, but you drink it down, willing your body to keep moving. The death ride continues. You cling to every bite, every sip, every heartbeat. Because in this endless gallop, even a meal is a triumph. The siege drags on, dust thickening the air like a choking blanket. You sit deep in your saddle, clutching a small ration of hardened meat chips, your last reserves. The enemy presses closer, their war cries mixing with the creak of your horse's saddle. Hunger gnaws, but your hands are steady, and your eyes sharp. Rationing here is ruthless. Every crumb is precious, every bite measured. The Mongols didn't just fight battles, they waged war against starvation itself. The meat chips are tough and dry, but packed with enough protein to keep your muscles twitching and your reflexes alive. You gnaw carefully, mindful not to waste a single fragment. Around you, comrades do the same, chewing silently in the shadow of siege towers and catapults. The enemy believes hunger will break your spirit, but you know better. Historians still debate how Mongols sustained themselves during extended sieges. Some claim they lived off the land, hunting and gathering even under fire. Others say their diet shrank to bare essentials, hardened meats, fermented milk, and the sheer will to survive. Your horse shifts beneath you, sensing the tension. You feed him a small handful of millet, sharing the scant resources you have. The partnership is a lifeline in this grim tableau. You steal a glance at the enemy lines, then back to your dry ration. It's not much, but it's yours. You swallow slowly, letting the tough meat dissolve against your tongue. Your mouth is dry, your throat scratchy, but your resolve hardens. This is survival at its rawest. You wipe sweat and dust from your brow, tighten your grip on the reins, and prepare for the next wave. Because even in siege, the Mongols eat, on horseback, in motion, and with unyielding spirit. Your mouth is dry, the taste of sinew and salt lingering long after the last bite has been swallowed. Ahead, the vast steppe rolls out endlessly, sun dipping low, painting the sky with fire and shadow. This is the last meal before what some call glory, the unknown beyond the next ride. You lift the last pouch of kumis, the fermented mare's milk that tastes like sweet vinegar mixed with sour cream and a hint of wildflowers. You take a final, deliberate gulp, feeling the cool fizz tickle your throat. It's a taste of home, of endless grasslands, and of a life lived between hooves and hunger. You brace yourself, knowing the ride ahead might be your last. The stories you'll leave behind are written not in ink but in the sweat of your brow, the scars on your hands, and the taste of fermented milk still clinging to your tongue. Historians still debate the role of kumis beyond sustenance. Was it merely nourishment, or a kind of spiritual elixir, a drink that carried warriors through death and beyond? Some say it was a rite of passage, others a final blessing. You sit tall, reins firm in your hands, muscles tense but ready. The air around you hums with anticipation, the steppe holding its breath. Your horse paws the ground, eager and impatient, a mirror of your own resolve. You take a deep breath, savoring the last bite, the last sip, the last taste of a life lived entirely on the move. Because this is the Mongol way, relentless, unyielding, and always riding forward. You urge your horse onward, the world blurring into motion and memory. The last bite before the afterlife. The dust settles softly now, the clatter of hooves fading into a quiet hum beneath a vast sky. You breathe out, your body relaxing into the rhythm of the ride, the lingering taste of salt and fermented milk a gentle reminder of the day's journey. There is no rush anymore, only the soft sway of your horse beneath you, carrying you gently across an endless horizon. The flavors that once startled your tongue now soothe it like a familiar song. You feel the warmth of the sun's last rays, the whisper of the wind as it cools, and the comforting weight of survival resting on your chest. The steppe's harshness fades, replaced by a soft calm. Remember, this life was never easy, but it was lived with purpose and endurance. Each bite, each sip, each step forward was a testament to resilience, to adaptation, to the unbreakable spirit of those who rode forever. Now, as your eyelids grow heavy, let the sounds of the steppe lull you into rest. The journey continues in dreams, and with it, the taste of history's wild, relentless ride. Sleep well, traveler. The dawn awaits.